Hi, welcome to the webinar for Before You Start FYP, Thoughts from the FYP Faculty. So as you probably know, my name is Kaylee, and today I'm joined by some of the lovely and talented faculty in our FYP program. This webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to that recording after. So if there's something you thought you missed or a detail you didn't catch, you will have access to that. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to ask that if you have any questions, please put them there. So before we start, I'm going to give a quick land acknowledgement. The University of King's College sits on the unceded territory that is subject to the Peace and Friendship Treaties for peaceful coexistence and good relations among all those that live in Mi'kma'ki. And the University of King's College also recognizes the contributions and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people who've been here for over 400 years. So today I am joined, as I said, by some lovely and talented people from the FIP faculty. Dr. Tim Clark, Associate Director of Student Support, Catherine Fullerton, Associate Director Academic, and then Dr. Neil Robertson, Director of the Foundation Year Program. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Robertson.
Great, thank you so much. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the webinar, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the new year, in the new academic year, that is. My job is just to say a few words about FYP overall and introduce you to sort of the general sense of it. You probably have a pretty good sense of that already, and I hope we can leave lots of time for questions and discussion at the end. So the foundation program, as you probably realize, is both a hopeful program and an ambitious program. We cover a lot of material, and in a sense, if you don't like what you're reading or you don't like the lecture today, just wait another day and you'll be on to something new and something different with a different person introducing it to you. And there's a way in which we move quickly. We have a curriculum, that is to say, there's a course of study, and actually the word curriculum comes from the word to run, as in to run a race. So there's ambition and desire and aspiration. And one of the things about the foundation program is you're going to cover a number of things that may interest you and you'd want to spend more time on, but we will be moving forward. It's for your later years of study that you'll have an opportunity to look into some of these things more fully and completely than we're able to do in our kind of introductory work of taking you, in a sense, as a kind of odyssey or journey from the ancient world to the contemporary world. In a way, we are, sort of the rationale for the program is ultimately to take us back to ourselves, but by going on a journey. And traveling is one of the ways in which we can come to know ourselves, by looking into other perspectives and other standpoints, and then becoming aware of some of the assumptions, some of the beliefs that are operating for us and in us, and also see some of the sources of those beliefs and assumptions about what humanity is, what politics is, what justice is, what religion is, what nature is, all sorts of questions that are going to come before us. And I know that a number of you are already waiting for the book list. That is to say, the chief books that we're going to be looking at in the foundation program. There's also a number of readings in the handbook that you'll only be able to get a hold of once we've got together in the fall. But the foundation program is at its heart about reading and reflecting on our reading. And so the first thing that we do in the foundation program, the first way of learning, is to read these wonderful and important and, to my mind, infinite or unlimited books. That is to say, they aren't subject to a synopsis, even an AI synopsis that might come along to you. They have a richness and complexity that means that I've been reading many of these works over a lifetime, and each year the students and the conversation in the program brings out aspects and issues and concerns that are new and bring out new depths. And the lectures in the program are an introduction to that text or that event that we're thinking about. And they're not the final word by any means. They're really kind of the first word, a kind of way into the program. And the tutorial is the opportunity for you to reflect on that together with our wonderful body of tutors. And as you know, the foundation program is divided, I hope you have a sense, into 6 sections: ancient, medieval, the Renaissance and Reformation, the Age of Reason, the era of revolutions, and then finally the contemporary world. And you'll have a main tutor who will be taking you through 3 of those sections at the tutorial level, and you'll be mixing that up with other tutors. So you'll have both continuity and difference and diversity in your instruction and in your experience. And you can be taking the foundation year program alongside others who are doing very different courses of study. So there will be there are going to be arts students, there are going to be science students, and there are going to be journalism students all taking the program. And that's one of the ways that your life gets enriched, is because you'll be in conversation about these important works, but from the different perspectives that the different students in their different interests and formations are bringing to that work. So a typical day in the foundation year program begins with the lectures that start at 9:30 and end at 11:30, and then that's all of us together. So it's something like 200 students in the lecture hall, and then we break into tutorials of no more than 15, and we meet with their fellow students who are part of our tutorial group, and we interact in conversation with them. Those happen for an hour between 11:30 and 12:30, or 12:30 and 1:30, or 1:30 and 2:30. You then have the rest of the afternoon after you finish your tutorial is free. That may be a time when you're doing an elective in another class, or it may be the time when you're going to have a chance to do your reading for the next day, or begin to work on your essay, or perhaps any of the other things that enrich your lives. So that's a kind of typical day in the foundation year program. And each week ends with a general tutorial where we gather together as a group. It's entirely voluntary, but we have a chance to meet with all the lecturers of that week, and we have a conversation about that material. So the next page, I think, is telling us that what the foundation year program can be for you is a foundation. And so from that point of view, one of the things you need to be thinking about in your first year is what elective or electives you'll be taking alongside that. This can be an opportunity to meet one of your requirements for your degree. So let's say if you need a science requirement because you're an art student, then you might think about taking a science class. There's a history of science and technology class that actually works well with FYP. That's an option that you might be interested in looking at. But then you don't need to make this decision right away. But as you're going through the foundation year program, you might be thinking about, well, what am I going to major in? You may already have that in mind. And you complete your major through King's and Dalhousie. You can complete it through taking any of the arts or science programs that Dalhousie has to offer, or you may be completing it as well with one of the programs that King's has to offer. Obviously, the journalism students in particular will be completing their degree through King's, but then we also have upper year programs. We have a contemporary studies program, an early modern studies program, and a history of science and technology program. And all of those are ways that you have a relationship with King's and a relationship with Dalhousie, because they are taught, they're taken alongside Dalhousie. So we have a campus that we share. King's is literally on the corner of the Dalhousie campus. So we have a kind of world of our own, but it's a world that opens out into the larger world of Dalhousie, where we have a library that's beautiful and suitable for us, but at the same time, you have access to a large major university library at the Killam. And equally, we have certain facilities for extracurricular activities, gym, gym and workout and all that sort of thing. But there's also facilities available at Dalhousie, and that sense in which you will both have an identity belonging to a small college, but access to a large university means, as we sometimes put it, that you have a chance to have the best of both worlds. So that's probably enough from me. And I will hand you over to Tim Clark, who is the Associate Director of Student Support, and let him introduce himself.
Hey, hi everyone. As Neil just said, I'm the Associate Director of Student Support. Um, so my main role in the foundation year program is to serve as a kind of point person for any matters of academic accommodation that you might require. So if you require academic accommodations, you may be in the process of setting up an accessibility plan through the Student Accessibility Center at Dalhousie. So that would apply to your entire university career, so courses outside of FYP. However, one of the benefits of being a small, flexible program like the foundation year program is that we can also handle all of our academic accommodations in-house. So if you haven't yet been able to establish academic accommodations through Dalhousie, you can do so directly with me, just by either coming by my office at any point in the year or sending me an email, again, at any point of the year. And we can set up a meeting and talk about what your needs might be and how we might be able to address them. So academic accommodations, of course, is a pretty broad range of things. By far the most common of these that we deal with have to do with assignment extensions. So if for some reason you have a legitimate reason for not being able to complete the assignments during the allotted period, you can arrange extensions by getting in touch with me. I should say I am notoriously accessible by email. I answer emails at every hour of the day, practically every day of the week. I can't guarantee an instant response over the weekend, but more often than not, you're going to get one. So if you have any questions about the accommodations process, about what can be accommodated, what can't, about how you go about any of those things, please do just get in touch with me by whatever means you're comfortable with. I also have my office on the third floor of the same building that the FYP lecture hall is in. So I'm pretty easy to track down, and my whole job is to be available to you to discuss these matters. So please feel free to take advantage of that at any time. One of the other things that I'm responsible for is making referrals to other academic and non-academic supports. So although what I accommodate typically will be academic matters, if you have non-academic support needs and you don't know where to go, just ask me and I can put you in touch with the right people, right? We have quite, for a small university, we have quite an extensive team at King's for dealing with all manner of these requirements. We have a student support advisor who can help with everything from adjusting to being away from home for the first time to mental health needs and referrals. We have an Indigenous student support and outreach coordinator. We have an accessibility officer. We have a range of supports that aren't covered by my office, but that if you have need of, I can certainly put you in touch with them. So basically, if you feel like you need something and you're not sure where to turn, just ask me and I can do my best to point your sales in the right direction. So if we move over to the next slide, I can talk a little bit about how grades work in the foundation year program. So as Neil gave you some indication already, the program tends to move pretty quickly. We keep up a quick clip. And that's true not just of the reading, but also of the assignment structure. So you will have essays roughly every 2 weeks. And those will always be more or less the same in form. You'll receive a quotation and the prompt discuss. So there's quite a strong emphasis in FYP on developing your own perspective on the material, developing your own sense of what kinds of questions are important to ask or rewarding to ask about these texts. So essays every 2 weeks or so. We also have oral exams at the end of the fall and the winter terms. If you haven't done oral exams before, you may be a little intimidated by this process, but I think our students often find that once they've had the first oral exam, the second is far less intimidating, right? It sounds more intimidating than it is. Really, it's an opportunity for you to come to a room with two instructors, and you'll just be asked a series of questions. Oftentimes, these are more or less open-ended questions, inviting you to reflect on the reading that you've done through the year. And it can just be quite a pleasant conversation about the texts that you've read. So the oral exams, we have two of them, and they're they can be quite rewarding. Although you will build them up a bit, but you'll certainly get through that. We also have written midterms, again, one each semester. So if you're the sort of student who might respond better to a kind of written evaluation, we also have that. So both oral and written evaluations are part of the FIP curriculum. And I should mention again, in relation to my role as ADSS, if you have accommodations, needs, or questions related to either the oral exams or the written midterms, we invite you to set up a meeting to talk about those with us. There are a number of things that we can accommodate in these processes, so certainly be in touch if you have accommodations needs. And the other piece of the grading comes from tutorial attendance. So I'll talk about tutorials in just a moment, but you probably already have some sense. Participation is absolutely crucial in a tutorial setting, and the main way that's evaluated is by your attendance, right? It's valuable for you just to be there in that room. So there is an attendance grade associated with tutorials. And so if we switch to the next page, I can talk a little bit about how tutorial actually works. So although you have the morning lecture, in certain respects, the beating heart of FIP, the thing that's really unique about the foundation year program, is the tutorial experience. So these are small, intimate groups of students. As Neil mentioned, these will never be more than 15. In practice, tutorial groups are often smaller than 15. You stay in the same tutorial group throughout the year. So this is quite important in the sense that you will develop a rapport with your tutorial peers over the course of the year. You'll build confidence and comfort in discussing the course material with them and in their presence. And this can be a real opportunity to develop some lasting friendships and lasting companionships through the program. And essentially what tutorial is a forum for you and your classmates to discuss the day's material and relate it to the lecture in a way that is a little bit more student directed than you might expect of a kind of top-down sort of lecture format, right? You're able to ask questions about things you don't understand. You're able to explore different interpretations of the material. You'll be able to bounce ideas, not just off of your tutor, but perhaps more importantly, off of your peers, right? So this is an open forum for discussion. This is where some of the most important and lasting insights are developed in the foundation year. And it's not every day that you'll have an opportunity to just sit in a room with a handful of your peers and have an audience who will listen to you talk about important and interesting material, right? So this is kind of the in a way the crown of FIP is the tutorial experience, and this is where much of the most stimulating academic activity that we do takes place. And so with that, I will pass you over to Catherine to discuss life on campus.
Great, thanks, Tim. Hopefully this dovetails really nicely with everything that you've just heard from Neil and Tim, but also let me just echo their thoughts that I'm very much looking forward to meeting you all. One downside of the panel format of today's meeting is that we don't get to see your faces, but I look forward to doing so once we see you on campus. So to tell you what you have looking forward to once you get there, I'm sure that during orientation week, you'll be introduced to all of the different opportunities to get involved in campus life, but I'll give you an overview of some of the things to look forward to. We have plenty of student societies for all interests at King's. If you are a journalism student, you'll probably be very interested in The Watch, which is our student publication, our student newspaper on campus. We also have the King's Dance Collective, the King's Literary Society, the King's Chorus, Chapel Choir, King's Pride, intramural sports teams, as well as varsity sports teams, and the King's Theatrical Society that puts on theater performances all throughout the year, entirely student run. There's also a day student society. So if you are a student who will be commuting onto campus, or if you just live off campus, then I highly encourage you to join the day student society. They'll keep you in touch with events that are happening on campus, and we try to coordinate with them to make sure that events are accessible to commuting students. You'll find lots of great community with other people who commute, maybe some people to ride the bus with. And then looking forward to your years ahead in your studies, there are also student societies for all of the upper year programs at King's. So there's a contemporary studies program, student society, one for the early modern studies program, and one for the history of science and technology. And so many of those organize academic conferences and also publish student journals. So if you're looking to meet students from upper year programs, maybe you're thinking ahead, as Neil suggested, to your later years in undergraduate studies, those are some great opportunities to meet upper year students and get a sense for what the upper year programs are like. In terms of events on campus, we also have a few FYP curriculum or running parallel to the FYP curriculum, a number of events to support your learning, including Read Now and Write Now events. These are ways of gathering students together to do the reading for the next day's lecture together, which is especially nice when we're looking at works of theater, because we can, as a group, kind of pair off the different parts and have everybody read a different part of the text. And then Write Now is an opportunity to get together before FYP papers are due and have a kind of intense writing session a few nights before the deadline. We also have night FYP events that will be organized by Neil Robertson. You'll have things to look forward to, like movie nights, screenings. Sometimes we go out into the community for local theater or musical performances. And then every year for the past few years, we've also had the Great FYP Debate, where teams of faculty and students get together and debate some sort of topic or question that is core to the FYP curriculum. So things like, is the Epic of Gilgamesh the beating heart of the FYP curriculum? Or what metaphors can we use to kind of sum up our FYP experience? We also have tons of other on-campus events that are related to FYP, but really just about the King's community more generally, including formal meals where we all wear academic robes and have a speaker attend the dinner in the meal hall. Lunch in the Lodge is an event that our president has organized, bringing in distinguished alum to speak to small groups of students and give them a sense for what to look forward to after FYP and after undergraduate studies. Big Night is a formal dinner with talent show showcasing the talents of students and faculty. And then we have a number of really exciting campus traditions at King's. So Classics in the Quad is an event every year in the fall where the King's Theatrical Society puts on a production of a Greek tragedy or Greek comedy for the broader community. We have an April Fool's water balloon fight most years, a president's hike and a skate in the winter. And you'll also find tons of opportunities to get involved in community service and also the King's Chapel community, including retreats, hikes. I mentioned the choir, and the Loaded Ladle is a sustainable, non-hierarchical local food co-op on campus that a lot of students get involved with. So tons of different opportunities for just about everything that you can imagine wanting to do on campus with like-minded people. You'll find it. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. Also, one of the supports that we have for you in the foundation year program is the FYP writing coach. This year, our FYP writing coach is Molly Rookwood. She was our writing coach last year as well. She's very experienced with writing and writing FYP papers specifically. She can help you with any aspect of your written work for the foundation year program. So if you are brainstorming and looking for help coming up with a thesis, you can make an appointment with Molly and she'll help figure out how to kind of zero in on your argument. She can also help you revise final drafts, and she can help you with the feedback that you've received from your tutors, figuring out how to incorporate that into the next paper prospectively. You can schedule one-on-one meetings with Molly throughout the year. And I believe this year she's also planning to host a number of workshops to support all aspects of your FYP writing process. And let me just add that in addition to the FYP writing coach, you also, of course, have access to your tutors every section. And so please remember that your tutors have office hours and that we are very, very happy and indeed enthusiastic to talk to you about your writing and to help you with all aspects of this process as well. So if you have questions about the text, you're brainstorming a thesis or an argument, you want to figure out how to put ideas together, please also don't hesitate to speak with your FYP tutors. We are nerds who are constantly looking for opportunities to talk about books. And this is another way that we just love our jobs. So you have Molly and you also have your tutors to help with writing throughout the year. You might also then be wondering where to get your books for the foundation year program. And here you have a number of different options. The first one that I would refer you to is the King's Co-op Bookstore. The website is kingsbookstore.ca. The manager of our bookstore, Paul McKay, is exceptional. He will have the King's book list up in very short order, I'm sure. And you can also find all the books for your upper year courses. But if you would like to order a book, you can also treat him like Amazon and just send him an email and let him know that you're looking for a book and he will bring it in for you. He is very knowledgeable and just a tremendous support. So you can find the King's Co-op Bookstore on campus, right underneath the alumni hall where we'll have our main lectures. You can also order all of your books online. And I believe Paul usually has it set up so that you can just click one item to add to cart and get the whole King's book list. If you'd like to do things piecemeal or on your own, you can also find many King's textbooks in used bookstores around town, certainly in Halifax, but also where you are. I'm sure you'll find a number of these books in used bookstores. And previous FYP students will often sell individual texts online. And so check out Facebook Marketplace and other social media for used bookstores, used books from FYP students. You can find everything you need that way. One thing I would note is if you are buying used books, just make sure that you check the ISBN, which is a kind of a code for books. It usually starts with 978. Just make sure that you're getting the correct edition and the correct translation of the text, as a lot of the texts that we use have been published in different formats and with different translations, and sometimes they make a difference. And so just make sure that when you get the King's book list that you refer to the ISBN of texts to make sure you're getting the right translation of the books that you buy. Buying them through the bookstore will make sure that you have the right edition for the year.
Thank you, Catherine. So I believe this is where I take over before we get to question period. So a quick housekeeping note, we do offer academic services. They are here to help you on your King's journey. So they help you for course planning, for registration. So if you haven't registered for FYP, you should really do that now, so that way you're able to get into the tutorial you'd like. We offer peer academic advisors as well as our regular academic advisors. Their job is to kind of connect with you on a peer-on-peer level, but they are trained like academic advisors, so they can tell you about like degree programs, how the major that you're looking to is structured. So they can help you if you want to like change majors, if you want to change degrees. That is where academic services step in. If you'd like to connect with academic services, you can email our office at registrar@ukings.ca, or you can also book an online appointment. And again, we're available throughout the summer, and especially if you have not registered for FYP yet, you should do that now. And you can very easily get in touch with us to talk about your options and how you want to structure your year, including whether or not you want to take an elective, if you want to do like a math credit, all sorts of stuff like that. We also are going to have orientation week. So orientation week is actually completely student run. So it's run by our the King Students Union, so the student government. Keep an eye on your email and sign up in advance. It's going to go to your student email. If you aren't checking your student email regularly right now, that's what you should be doing. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog barking. Meshki's so enthusiastic about Kings. She loves it. If you're checking your student email, you'll also get all emails about residence registration. They're going to go there. Orientation week starts on move-in day. Move-in day is on Labor Day weekend. That is a very busy time in Halifax because there are 7 universities and colleges in total. So if you are coming from out of province or out of Halifax, you should make your travel arrangements, including flights, rental cars, hotels. You should be making those right now because It will make your life a lot easier in August. We're also doing a little contest. So what are you most excited for about FIP? Just let us know what that is, and you could win a $30 gift card from the King's Bookstore, and your answer will be shared on our socials. So I'm going to send an email after this on Monday, and it'll have a question again and more details about the contest. But if you know what you're excited for, please send your answer to admissions@ukings.ca for July 17th to be considered. And now we are on to the question and answer period. So if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. I do have a few questions to get us started. So the first question I have, and this is a question I actually get a lot from students, is there a best tutorial? Which one of you would like to go first? Anyone can jump in.
The best tutorial is the one you're in. Each tutorial is just a group of people that have been brought together. It's all a bit happenstance. If that's what he means by the group of tutorials, is there a best tutorial in the sense of an individual tutorial session? That would be whatever works best for you. Yeah, each tutorial is unique, and it creates unique bonds and unique conversations. And that's one of the wonderful things about FIP, is that there is this kind of moment where there will be a small group of you, you'll get to know each other, and your quirks and your gifts, and as well as maybe some of the challenges you bring to others. All of that will be part of the dynamic, and it's about learning to think in the presence and through the presence of others that's at the heart of what a tutorial is about. And in a way, it's a lesson that we don't just think for ourselves. We always think through and with others. But Catherine and Tim probably have much better things to say about that than I do.
Haley, when students ask you that question, do they mean which individual tutorial or which time slot is best?
Usually the time slot. That's
Okay.
that's how I usually interpret the question. But if you have answers for both, please go ahead. Share them.
I had the same answer as Neil. I think whichever one you are in has the potential to be the best. And so I would just echo that. But in terms of time slot, I think it really, here too, it's a question of fit. Some students like going straight from lecture to tutorial. Other students like having, an hour for lunch between lecture and tutorial to kind of digest the ideas while they're digesting lunch, and use that time also to kind of socialize and connect and hear from other people while they gather their thoughts in preparation for tutorial discussions. And some people like a slightly longer break to do that. And so I think choosing the timing, personally, I like going straight from lecture to tutorial, but I've come to appreciate the value of the later tutorials more in my time as a tutor, just seeing that it does give students some time to kind of reflect. And so for different students, I think that's helpful in different ways. So I think everybody makes that decision and that determination for themselves, but that's how I would navigate some of that choice.
Yeah, I think all of that's wise and well said, and I agree with all of it. I just add that in a way, the glory of tutorial is that it's what you are getting is precisely something that you cannot determine in advance, right? The value is that you build it in the room. So if you want the tutorial to succeed, you have direct agency over that in a certain way, right? You're participating in that experience. And it's quite frequent that as a tutor, you encounter a tutorial at the beginning of the year, and of course at the very beginning, everyone's a little awkward, everyone's a little uncomfortable. That goes away pretty quickly, and sometimes you get the experience of getting a tutorial at the end of the year that you had at the beginning, and realizing that this is a completely different group. The same people, but the dynamic has evolved tremendously, right? That's not an uncommon experience in FEP. So embrace the fact that it's a dynamic experience and it unfolds over time.
Thank you so much. Oh, do you want to add something, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Tim said is exactly right in my experience. The tutorials that really gel and that find ways of connecting outside of the tutorial space, whether that's going to lunch together or getting together to read, or even in small ways, kind of pairing up and reading each other's work, really have a kind of transformative experience. And so I think going into it with that level of buy-in and that level of excitement is also really helpful. You will find kindred spirits at King, in FIP and at King's, undoubtedly, but it also helps to go in with that enthusiasm and that desire to kind of form those bonds. And so tutorials that can do that, or groups that can do that, really do seem to have a kind of unparalleled experience. So yeah, exactly as Tim said.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we have a question from the Q&A. It's kind of two questions. So the first is, what are the recommended ways to take notes? So should it be done like electronically, with paper? And where can we find office hours for tutors? And where are the offices? So I'm not sure who wants to start off. Catherine, you're just nodding, so I assume you're gonna start with this one. So yeah, go ahead.
Again, I think Neil has thoughts, and Neil has a more difficult office to find, I think, so you should start.
Yeah, my office is very challenging, but yeah. So in terms of what was the beginning of your question? It was about
What is the ideal way to take notes? Do you do them
taking notes, right?
electronically, with your
Yes, good, good.
laptop, by
Okay,
hand?
so that's a really important question. So there are just two. The first point to make is that tutorials, so in lectures, we allow screens because people are taking their lecture notes. But in tutorials, we don't allow screens unless there's a special accommodation. And that's to ensure that we're talking to each other and not looking into our. So at that point, if you're taking notes, then you're taking them by hand in a notebook. Um, and the one thing I would say is, for me, note taking, you shouldn't think that you're a computer simply recording something. You should think of it as an active process of learning, because really there's no better way to learn than to take notes in a deliberative fashion in which you're engaging with the material, even arguing with what you're hearing. And so writing down what people are saying, but then potentially saying, okay, I've got a question here. I can talk about that in tutorial. Or I can raise that elsewhere, or I can write an essay on that because I now found something I really think is wrong. So it should be an engaged form of note taking. Simply recording what the lecturer said is the beginning point of good note taking. Even better is doing it critically, analytically, thoughtfully, and in an engaged fashion. That would be the most important thing I would say about that. Maybe that's enough for me, and somebody else can deal with that and with office space, office hours.
I can speak to where to find office hours, and so as to the individual offices where you find those is a little tricky because they're scattered all across campus throughout the different buildings. So that'll be easier for you to navigate once you have a sense of what things look like on the ground. But any of your tutors or your instructors would be more than happy to give you directions to their office if you ask them, or if you send them an email. As to where you can find specific office hours, they'll be listed on Brightspace on the right-hand side of the main page, or on your instructor's faculty pages. So if you go to either of those places, you can find where your instructors will be having office hours. And again, the best policy, if you just don't know and you can't find it anywhere, just ask. And someone, for example, if you can't find where my office hours are listed or where my office is, send me an email, pull me aside. If you see me, I'm happy to generate traffic. We want to see you, so it's in our interest to make sure that we can.
Yeah, I think as Tim said, office hours are sometimes the best part of our job in terms of teaching on campus. And so please don't I think a lot of students think that office hours are some kind of imposition or some additional ask, and it's really not. I'd like to just emphasize that we love being visited in office hours. We wish that we had more conversations in office hours. And so please think of those as a part of our job that we really look forward to sharing with you. It's not an additional ask or a kind of, yeah, it's not an imposition for us. And I like to think that our offices being scattered all over campus is also just an opportunity for you to get to know different parts of campus. And so, as Tim said, you'll find us kind of in all different buildings, and there's something nice about navigating different spaces to find different people. But you'll find all that information, as Tim said, on Brightspace. I was just going to add that I think note taking. I also think it's helpful to think of note taking as something that begins when you read the text. And so one thing that we'll often encourage you to do is I just grabbed a copy of The Souls of Black Folk, which is on the reading list, spoiler alert, for this year. And you'll notice like I have tons of underlining and highlighting and marginal notes that I've written for myself. And so I just wanted to add and underscore that note taking is something that happens with your first encounter in the text, where you find your own way through it. And that's why we encourage you to buy the text in hard copy if you can, because you actually have the chance then not only to bring it with you to tutorial so that you can paginate and find the passage that you wanted to ask a question about, or find the passage that somebody else is reading because they think it's relevant, but also that you'll have all the notes that you wrote for yourself as you were reading, questions that you had, words that you needed to look up, or key terms to clarify, things you thought were really important and wanted to highlight. And so that's an important and integral part of note taking that I think we often forget about and worth underscoring.
And perfect. This is maybe just building on what Catherine said. There's sort of question, is it better to type your notes or to write them by hand? Again, that's an individual judgment. Do what works for you. But again, I think that there are advantages to handwritten, because it keeps you off of your screens, and screens are a realm of endless temptation for distraction. And one of the things that the foundation program is sort of centrally about is focus. And so there's a way in which I think, and I think that just doing it by hand helps to internalize what you're doing, and it creates that continuity. If you're writing on the text, as you're asking, well, why is this happening? Or here's something really interesting or something really important. And then that carries on into you writing your notes at the lecture, and that carries on to writing in your tutorial. There's a kind of continuity that you can have there. But, if doing things electronically is the way that works, you're used to it, that's familiar territory, don't pay any attention to me.
Perfect. So we have another question in the chat. I think I know the answer to it, but Tim, I think you could really elaborate on it. So the not question, I don't know where I'm getting that from. Are lectures recorded for review afterwards? I believe the answer is no, but Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe each term there's a note taker who is hired. If you want to expand upon that, because this seems like an accessibility question.
Yeah. Yes. So the default position is that no recordings of anything are available. It's you are providing the resources, and your attendance is required in the room, right? So part of the FYP experience is this sort of communal space where everyone shows up in the lecture hall and is getting the same material and then processing it later in the day. As you say, we do have resources available, such as a program note taker specifically for accessibility requirements, though. So access to these resources, these supplements, has to go through the Associate Director of Student Support. So if you have a legitimate reason, an accessibility related reason for requiring access to the note taker, for example, we can arrange that. But the default position for across the board is that we want you attending in the room. We want you, not experiencing this remotely or by mediation. Right. So the ideal is certainly to be there in person. But again, if it's a matter of accessibility, that's a completely different conversation, and we can certainly cross that bridge.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So this is another question that I get all the time, almost as soon as students have applied to the program in October. Do I need to prepare before I come to FIP? So students will ask, do I need to start doing the reading before I come? Is everyone there going to know more than me? So I'd love for the three of you to give your thoughts on that.
Well, I could say a little bit. So you don't need to do anything in advance. We do suggest you can take a look at the Epic of Gilgamesh. Especially good to have it read before the first lecture, because it's going to be on the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the idea is that you do your reading before the before the lecture, but it's helpful actually if it's fresh. And so do whatever works for you again. You know, you need to take responsibility for your own learning style and your own learning way of being. So do what works for you. But lots of people have done the foundation year program. They've arrived having read the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then they just carry on forward, and it works perfectly well for them. But if you're the kind of person that wants to have a little bit more time in advance and read some things and then refresh them later on, sure, go do that. That's what the booklets will help you to do if that's what you're wanting to start to do. So, but my general advice is, it's, you're kind of getting on a tour, and you may as well just go with the tour program, and that means, yeah, and part of that is the intensity of catching up, keeping up with the reading, and those sorts of things. Again, so make your own choices, do what works for you, but certainly for lots and lots of students, just kind of going with the program has worked very well.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think all of that's absolutely correct. There's not necessarily an advantage to, let's say you have one student who shows up having read the entire Divine Comedy, front to finish. They're not necessarily just inherently in a better position than you if you haven't read any of it before the week that we study it, right? As Neil said, there's something to be said for encountering the material fresh. We're all here to learn, right? So there's no expectation that you show up with everything already built. And in fact, some of the most striking insights in tutorial and in essays, come from that experience of coming to something with fresh eyes, without preconceptions or without the sense that, well, I already know this, so my view is set. So I don't have the same flexibility to encounter it, right? Like there's something very valuable about coming fresh and open-minded, and to that anxiety, will everyone else know more than me? I mean, not really. I mean, yes and no. That's life in a way, but so what, right? It makes no difference to whether or not you will get out of FIP what you need to get out of it, right? Again, the gold is generated in the moment. The gold is generated in that dynamic process of being in the room and engaging with the people around you and the texts at the same time. That's where everything happens, right? So it's not necessarily that you have this long history with the texts and you've read everything before you arrive. That won't, that won't hurt you, but it won't necessarily give you a leg up either. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, I just wanted, yeah, this point about even, people are going to come with different formations, and some people will know some things and not know other things, and so on and so forth. Uh, and but everybody is having to learn something, and even if you've had something before, you had it in a different context, and you may have been reading it in a certain level and way that can actually interfere with getting access to new thoughts and deeper thoughts. So what looks like an advantage can actually be a limitation too. I used to take singing. I still take singing lessons, and people would say, well, the advantage, that you had at the beginning was you didn't have any mistakes that you were making because you didn't, and then you can do things at a certain level, everybody has that experience that, oh, everybody else knows more than me. That's part of life and part of university life, particularly, to have that feeling inside, but it completely doesn't matter, and it's not even true.
Yeah, my view here is the same as Tim and Neil's. You'll encounter all sorts of different people who have different experiences, but to that feeling of imposter syndrome that is just very normal when you're meeting new people, and especially when those new people are exciting and impressive in the way that you all are. It's normal to feel a sense of everybody knows more than me. But exactly as Tim and Neil have said, it's not that's not a helpful way to think about it, and it's not the most fruitful. We've read these texts many times, and yet every year we encounter them completely anew with a new group of students, because new students have different questions and different life experiences that are informing their reading of the text, and that will draw out new nuances and details that we hadn't considered before. And so I think the way to go into it is with that excitement and that openness and that curiosity to learn from what other people encountered when they read the same words that you read. There's something really vibrant and really exciting about that. And exactly as they said, some of the most exciting papers that I've graded and some of the most exciting conversations I've had in tutorial have been with groups of students where, even if a number of students had read the text before, which happens very rarely, that one or two students were coming at it for the first time, and they were the ones who had questions that the ones who had read it before couldn't answer. And those, in a way, are the very exciting questions, the ones that don't have easy answers, the ones that require a whole conversation or inspire debate. And so I think there's something really worth embracing about that newness of a perspective as well. And being able to encounter a text anew, even if you've read it before, is a very important skill. There was another part of the question that that said, I also think that if you know yourself well enough to know that you are a slow reader, then it's always great to look over the reading list and see what are some bigger texts or what are some challenging texts. The philosophy texts often catch people up because they're relatively short readings, but they're extraordinarily challenging. And so I think it's also a great advantage to just look ahead at the reading list. And if you know that you will need some extra time with text, then, when you're choosing your summer reading for August, maybe choose one of those novels or one of those philosophical texts and just give your eyes a quick glance over it first. I would still recommend reading it anew before the lecture. As Neil said, you want it to be fresh in your mind. But I don't think there's any harm in a first pass if you know that when things get stressful, that it's hard for you to finish a large volume of reading the night before, for example, or hard to plan that in an academic year. So I have both views there.
Perfect. Thank you. So Catherine, I believe you already went over this, but I just got another question about it. So if you could kind of quickly sum it up. An attendee asked if you need to have physical copies of books. And the kind of sub question is, could we just have copies online? So I think you should want to go over what you said again when you spoke on that slide. That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's no strong requirement that you have the physical copy, but as Neil mentioned, there's a technological limitation in the sense that tutorials are screen free, and so it's advantageous if you have the physical copy, not only because it's sometimes just pedagogically beneficial to have a physical copy that you're marking up, which I know you can also do with ebooks, but because you can't bring them to tutorial on your laptop, except in the case of accessibility accommodations, it's just advantageous and helpful pragmatically to have the hard copy. So generally, I tend to encourage that, and I think many of the other tutors feel the same way. But at the same time, I can appreciate the value of, especially for day students, for example, of having electronic books that you carry on the same laptop. And so there's no prohibition. I would just say if you're going that route, first, I would just make sure that you're getting the, again, same translation or same edition, if at all possible, because sometimes there can be big differences from one translation to the other, especially with older classical texts. And the other thing I would say is if you're the kind of person who likes to mark up your copy or keep notes online, it might just be helpful for conversation and tutorial for you to print off some of your notes beforehand and bring them in hard copy, or just kind of transcribe some of the things that are most important or that you want to make sure to talk about or questions that you have, so that you have those notes with you. So correct me if this is wrong, Tim or Neil, but my understanding or my sense is that you can absolutely use electronic copies or ebooks, but it might just require a different way of kind of preparing for tutorials. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Perfect. So I don't see any new questions in the Q&A. Of course, if you have any, post them there. So I have last two questions. The first one is kind of serious, and then the last one is a fun one, I promise. This is a question we've been getting a lot this year, and I believe there's a formal policy that is being developed further. But what is the general policy on AI in FIP? Or using generative AI to write essays in FIP or start drafting them? So I don't know if all of you want to answer. It looks like Neil really wants to say something. But yeah, what is kind of stance on using
Well,
AI?
so our policy is very simple, which is that AI is not to be used at any point in the essay writing process. Now, that's a kind of clear and simple rule. Now, why do we have that? Because isn't AI this wonderful thing? Well, there's a way in which AI does all sorts of things for us that we are our education is precisely trying to have us do. It would be sort of like me saying I'm going to go for a run in my car. Uh, it'll get me there faster, but it won't help me develop the kinds of uh, disciplines, virtues, structures of my being that I need in order to get what I need out of running. So our process is we're helping you to learn to think independently for yourself. And in that sense, you need to be the one generating the intelligence. And if somebody else is generating that intelligence, even if you're critical and you're using it, it means that there's a moment in that process that isn't your thinking. And that means that somebody else is thinking, something else is determining or limiting what is going on in your thinking. So this is a kind of crucial sense that we see it as really undermining, getting a good grade is an important thing, but the grade is ultimately a measure of your capacity to think through difficult and challenging materials with your own mind and your own insight. And using AI takes that away from you. So for me, it's a tragedy. It's not just, this is evil, wrong, but, it's actually harming what is so central to what the foundation program is about. So that maybe that's too much of a serious sermon for you, but maybe somebody else has something more helpful to say.
I would just add to that. I think that's all completely correct. Using AI, you really are cheating yourself in a program like FIP. For 100 different reasons. So there's the sort of strong principled case, which I think we all believe in. But even at the sort of base pragmatic level, at 2 points in the year, you're going to be asked to conduct oral exams. You will be responsible for thinking out loud on the spot about these texts. And if you've relied on AI to generate those insights in the past, you simply won't be able to do that. And it will be a horrible experience. But it doesn't have to be, right? If you've actually read the material, and Neil's completely right, we teach thinking, right? And so writing is a form of thinking in an academic context. If you've been generating the writing and you've been doing the thinking, you won't have to worry about having a horrible oral exam experience, right? You'll have been doing the work up to that point. So, don't rob yourself of that, and don't set yourself up for a bad time, because that's not in anyone's interest here.
I will say I've done a fair bit of research on AI recently, and my sense is that it produces work that is passable but not good, and there's a distinct emptiness to reading work that has been written by AI. It almost seems soulless. It's really hard to kind of put your finger on what it is, but there's something very formulaically correct seeming, but just empty about AI writing. And so for all, like, I would just echo everything that my colleagues have said so far. I think that, using AI is a poor substitute for the hard work of thinking, which is a very generative and fulfilling, if challenging and anxiety-ridden process. But there's nothing quite like it. And so I think going into FIP, thinking of it as an opportunity to develop and really embracing the fact that learning and growing and developing means, it means hard work, but it also means ending up somewhere that you weren't at the beginning. And so it's normal and very natural for the beginning to be a place that has a kind of struggle built in. And that's a good part of the experience, and not something to be shied away from, and not something also that you can just kind of skip or omit. You kind of have to go through that, and it's a good thing that you do. So I think going into it, embracing that, and not thinking of AI as something uh, that will help you in any way, because it won't. It will, as Tim said, it's certainly not going to help you on midterms and oral exams, but it also just doesn't help your thinking generally. It does the work for you, but it does worse work than you would do, even if you think that your grades will be terrible if you do the work yourself. I can almost guarantee that that won't be the case, especially if you take advantage of all of the many resources that are available to you. But it's also the case, again, that even something that was really difficult to produce and that felt kind of clunky and hard and not good, often there's still a kind of an evident curiosity and a kind of vital energy in even those papers that is still much, much better for us to read. And I think also much better to write than something that has been written by AI that kind of checks all the boxes, but is essentially lifeless. And so I would say, if you're the kind of person who feels a lot of anxiety around grades, or feels a lot of anxiety around the work of writing a FIP paper, for example, or oral exams or any of that, again, you have tutors, you have many supports on campus that can help do work that you feel good about. But always, I would say, doing the work is just going to be way more important for every reason that I can think of than using AI to do it, which is just unfortunate in every sense of the word. So yeah, live the anxiety, relish the anxiety. The anxiety is good and it will get you to good places. AI will not help you.
Yeah, so we have a follow-up question, which is, what about the use of grammar checkers and spell checkers like autocorrect or Grammarly, which use AI? My understanding is that you will get a Microsoft Office subscription with your student, kind of an Office suite that you'll have as a student. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any response to this. I would say like try to avoid using AI. Grammarly, I think, you need a subscription for. So like if it's autocorrect in the Office suite, I think that's fine. And I think you can also turn off AI features. And I don't think autocorrect uh, would necessarily be a part of that. But if anyone wants to speak on opinions about Grammarly or kind of using AI within Office, feel free to. But I believe these comments are limited to generative AI like ChatGPT or whatever new thing they're trying to shill to all of us.
Yeah. So yeah, as you say, autocorrect doesn't quite fall into that category. Grammarly certainly does. So that should be off the table. Grammarly is, since it is using a kind of generative AI model, that's not going to help you. Autocorrect, I mean, my best advice is not to rely on it rigidly. It may be a guide, but the thing is, like, if you're just relying on autocorrect to tell you what is grammatically correct, it will lie to you because it can't detect context all the time, right? So it's just because autocorrect says it's right doesn't mean it's right. Just because it says it's wrong doesn't mean it's wrong. So you have to know the rules. There really is no way around doing the actual work. You just need to know how a sentence can be constructed in the language that you're working in. And there are just some things that there aren't easy shortcuts for. So autocorrect, it's a bit of a different pile, but don't rely on that either, right? You can rely on yourself and the things that you learn and develop in your own capacities. That will be a better guide for you in the long run.
And I believe that I forget the exact name. Is it Notes on Style? There is a guidebook on writing and academic writing that is available in the bookstore. I think it was E.B. White who wrote. I have a copy of it, but Neil's nodding his head. But you can buy a style book, and Neil can go further into it. That includes things like grammar and like how to structure an essay. But Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, just the crucial rules and principles are outlined in the handbook that Catherine is editing for us. And if you have any questions about that, talk to your tutors. That would be the line I would use constantly. If you've got any questions or concerns, talk to your tutors, email your tutors, and they will give you advice. But again, the fundamental thing is we are trying to create a program in which you're learning to think for yourself. And these AI programs deprive you of that opportunity. And so that's why we don't want them to be part of your learning experience, because it undermines it.
Perfect. So we have another question in the chat. So are there common things that trip students up in FIP? And do you have any top tip for FIP success? So I don't know which one of you wants to answer those questions first. Neil looks like he wants to say something, so I'm gonna nominate Neil to go first.
I'm not sure about what trips students up. I mean, things in FIP are pretty straightforward. You do the reading, you do the writing, you go to tutorial, you internalize the advice that you're given by your tutors and or by the writing coach or whatever in writing your essays, and you will develop through the course of the year. One of the things that is really important to remember is that it is a year-long course, and we take advantage of that, which means we have some big ambitions for you because we have a lot of confidence in you and believe in you. And that means that you're going to have challenges at the beginning of the year that you're going to master and overcome over the course of the year. And so the only kind of tripping up that I can think of is that you can get, sometimes students can get a little discouraged or a little anxious because that development is taking longer for them than they were hoping. But again, our experience is that this is a growing experience, and it's really like learning anything. It's like, learning to cook, or there's a way in which you will internalize and develop things simply by, you cook enough omelets and you'll start to produce a beautiful omelet. And so that kind of development is going to be part of it. So it's believing in yourself, to my mind, is the core thing. And we will believe in you and do everything we can support that belief.
I would just add to that the grading structure of FIP is designed so that no one misstep can truly sink you, right? So I share that sense that one of the common things that can trip students up is this sense that if you got 2 poor marks on an essay in a row, let's say, you may feel that things aren't going your way, or you may feel that you're not developing at the rate that you expect. It's a long race. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's really designed so that you have an opportunity to build iteratively on your strengths and on whatever you may discover are your weaknesses, right? So there's something to learn even from those moments where you feel like you haven't hit the mark, right? If I think about my own development as a writer, I never learned anything so well as when I did it wrong. That's how you know, right? The things that hurt, the things that bite when you get them wrong, are the things you won't forget. That's always been true for me anyway, and I think that's often true in a FIP context. But everybody here is invested in your success, so you have a lot of resources and a lot of time. As Neil said, it's a year. That's a lot of time to build up. So what trips you up may not be the same thing that trips up someone else. Everyone will trip up on something, on multiple somethings, but in the long run, there are a lot of ways to pick yourself up.
That was spoken like a true Nietzschean, Tim. Nothing teaches so much as pain. Nothing will make you remember so much as pain. uh,
Guilty.
uh, yeah, again, I'll just echo everything that Neil and Tim have said. I think that, as Tim said earlier, being invested in the program is maybe the biggest piece of advice that I would offer. I think one of like where students get tripped up is a tricky formulation. I was going to say there's just so much to do at King's, both in terms of curricular and extracurricular opportunities. And so I think one place that students can just get overwhelmed with either the choice or just that there are so many exciting things competing for their attention. And I think that's just a great problem to have. And so I think maybe one of the challenges of being a FIP student, especially an enthusiastic one, which is most of them, is finding the balance. But I also just think that's a lesson for adult life and human life generally. But finding the way to fit everything that you want in, and to feel good about the work that you're doing. But maybe also I'll just underscore again the point about FIP being a marathon and not a sprint. There's tons of time to learn everything that you need to learn to be the kind of students that you want to be by the end of FIP and throughout. And also, learn that your tutors are there to support you and want to be part of that process. And if you have questions about anything at all, ask. Don't feel that your question is too naive or that you should already know the answer. I think maybe that's another place that students get tripped up, is feeling as though they are supposed to know the thing already that they are actually just learning now. And we know that. And so if you have questions, ask them. Almost guaranteed someone else has the same question, but it's also just a great opportunity for all of us to talk about something that's probably very important if it has occurred to you and you're not sure about it. But don't feel at any point in the program, do not feel as though you are supposed to know something already. The supposed to is usually not a helpful formulation. So ask the question. It will probably help everybody.
And I would just underline, if you have that feeling, it's our fault, not yours. And that's why if you ask the question, you're helping us. Okay, that's just, yeah.
Good job. That was great, Neil. It's our fault, not yours. So thank you so much. I have one last quick question that I think each of our panelists will be able to answer in less than 10 seconds, and then we can wrap this up. What book on the reading list are you most looking forward to reading this year? And I'm going to start with Catherine because she's closest to me and her little box is the closest to me.
Oh boy. I should know this more than anyone because I've been working on the reading list. 10 seconds or less. I think yeah, honestly, I pulled it down from the bookshelf earlier just kind of at random, but I'm really looking forward to reading Du Bois again. It's not new. I've read it a few times now, but I love that text and I find that tutorial on that text is always exciting, so I'm looking forward to that one.
I could say something. So Catherine has, I think there's a new text in the Haitata Chronicles from Ethiopia, which I have never read. I'm very excited to read that and find out what the heck it's about. So I probably put that as the text that I'm really, really intrigued by.
This question always gives me the same anxiety as like, what's your favorite record? But it's not new to me. But we're teaching the Mi'kmaq creation story this year in the first week, and I have a great deal of fondness for that text, and I think it's worked so well in the last couple of years that we've done it. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. As I said, you're going to get an email from me this week with the recording and a few other housekeeping things. Thank you so much to the lovely and talented panelists for joining me today. I could not have done this without you. It is very true when I say that. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.